There is a car in your neighborhood worth close to $100,000. Its owner lost about $30,000 in just the first 3 years. Not because they overspend, but because they bought outright a car that should have only been leased. This video is not about whether German cars are good or bad. It is about how money actually moves for people who are genuinely wealthy. They lease German cars for 3 years and hand them back to the dealer. They buy Japanese cars outright and keep them for 10 years. In dollar terms, that gap can reach 6 figures over a decade. Picture a 2021 BMW X5 or X7 coming off a 3-year lease. It is now selling for less than half of what it cost new. The buyer thinks they just found a great deal. A BMW mechanic knows exactly what is waiting. BMW's V8, the N63, and later S63, uses plastic coolant hoses instead of metal. In the first 3 years, under fleet warranty, the plastic holds up fine. But after 60 to 80,000 miles, something changes. Thousands of heat and cool cycles wear down the plastic. It starts to lose its flexibility. It becomes brittle and prone to cracking at the connection points. When a hose cracks, coolant leaks slowly. If the driver does not catch it in time, the engine can overheat severely. This is exactly why luxury fleet leases are always capped at 3 years. Not because the law requires it. They know exactly when the plastic and rubber parts begin to break down, and they do not want to be the ones paying for it. The Range Rover raises an additional concern: its air suspension system. Each wheel uses a rubber air bladder inflated and deflated by an electric pump. The pump runs continuously to keep the vehicle's ride height stable. That rubber also goes through heat and cool cycles. It also ages. When it cracks, the car will slowly sink on one corner while parked. RepairPal puts the cost at $1,200 to $2,000 per corner. That is per corner, and it rarely fails on just one side. A same-age Land Cruiser or Lexus LX still runs on traditional coil springs. That applies to most standard trims. No electric pump, no air bladder, nothing to leak. Simple to the point of being boring. But that is exactly what a vehicle that holds its value needs to be. The interior tells a similar story. The Levante shares its control switches with much cheaper Fiat and Jeep models. Both brands fall under the Stellantis group. Drive both, and you will notice the same plastic feel and click. Those switches come from the same Stellantis parts bin as Fiat and Jeep models. The Toyota Sequoia capstone uses leather from a different tier entirely. The supplier also makes seating for some business-class private aircraft. Toyota's interior design team confirmed this when the model launched in 2023. Let's look at the real depreciation numbers. Kelley Blue Book publishes annual resale value reports. A BMW X7 loses 55 to 60% of its value after 5 years. A Range Rover Sport can lose up to 65% in some years. The Lexus LX 600 runs completely against that trend. Over 5 years, it typically loses only 35 to 40%. Before leaving the US market, the Land Cruiser was known for holding its value. In some years, used examples sold for nearly the same price as new ones. Demand simply outpaced supply. Now look at repair costs. The part most people never calculate before buying. RepairPal rates BMW reliability as below the industry average. Annual repair costs typically exceed $900. Unplanned repair visits happen far more often than with Japanese brands. Toyota and Lexus consistently rank among the lowest for repair costs. Toyota and Lexus annual repair costs typically land around $400 to $500. More importantly, the rate of serious unplanned repairs is significantly lower. Stack those two numbers, depreciation and repairs, and the gap becomes clear. The 5-year ownership cost difference is real and measurable. A $100,000 X7 can shed around $60,000 in depreciation. Add $4,000 to $5,000 in out-of-warranty repair costs on top of that. An LX600 at the same price loses around $38,000 to $40,000. And repair costs over the same period are nearly negligible. There is one number that almost nobody talks about: insurance. The BMW X7 and Range Rover carry high repair values and expensive parts. Insurers in the U.S. charge 20 to 35% more for full coverage. That is compared to a Lexus LX in the same price segment. Multiple insurance brokers publish this comparison data every year. Over 5 years, that insurance gap can add up to several $1,000s more. It is an almost invisible cost that very few car review channels ever mention. This is the part most viewers have never heard explained clearly. If you own a business, how you buy a car can change the math completely. Section 179 of U.S. federal tax law allows a significant first-year deduction. It applies to SUVs used primarily for business. The vehicle must have a GVWR between 6,000 and 14,000 pounds. It must also be used more than 50% for business purposes. The deduction can reach $31,000 to $32,000 in year 1. The exact limit varies by tax year. Above that threshold, 100% bonus depreciation currently applies. That rule was restored as of mid-2025. In short, a $90,000 work SUV can be deducted almost in full. You do not have to spread it across 5 years. This explains why many small business owners drive Range Rovers or G-Wagons. A sedan under 6,000 pounds caps out at about $20,000 in year 1. That limit is set by Section 280F, which covers luxury passenger vehicles. Put the same money into a heavy SUV, and the deduction multiplies significantly. But here is the point most buyers miss. A tax deduction reduces what you owe that year. It does not change the fact that the car is still losing real market value. The G-Wagon loses value slowly because the design has barely changed since 1979. That means it benefits from the tax deduction and holds its value well. A Range Rover or BMW X7 also gets the tax benefit, but it still depreciates quickly and carries high repair costs. 1 year of tax savings cannot offset 5 years of losses on a bad asset. If you lease instead of buying, Section 179 does not apply, but the full monthly lease payment can still be deducted as a business expense. That is true as long as the vehicle is used for work. This is what experienced accountants often tell service business clients. If you do not own heavy assets, lease a luxury vehicle instead of buying it. You avoid the capital loss at resale, and you still deduct most of the monthly cost. To be fair, not every Japanese car is a guaranteed safe choice, and not every German car is a trap. The new Toyota Sequoia switched to air suspension on its top capstone trim. That is the same system this video just flagged as a concern on the Range Rover. If you expect traditional Toyota durability from it, there is something to know. Air suspension ages the same regardless of which brand installs it. The failure rate looks low because the vehicle is simply too new for full data. On the other side, not every BMW uses the troubled N63 engine. Later straight-six engines, like the B58, have a different reputation. Independent shops have noted the B58 is relatively durable. It does not share the older coolant system problems that plague the N63. Another risk worth mentioning is luxury electric vehicles. Think an EQ SUV or electric Range Rover rolling off a 3-year lease. The depreciation is even steeper than it is on combustion engine vehicles. Battery capacity degrades over time. Next-generation battery technology improves and gets cheaper quickly. That makes older electric vehicles lose value faster than most buyers expect. There is another factor that often gets overlooked: proprietary parts. When a German model is discontinued, parts availability can shift quickly. And when a new generation launches, some components stop being offered entirely. Air suspension control modules are one example. Original parts can stop being supplied after about 8 to 10 years. Owners may then need recycled parts or overseas orders at much higher prices. Toyota and Lexus rarely run into this problem. Their chassis platforms typically share components across multiple generations. That keeps parts supply consistently more available. The operating principle here is simple. Lease things with predictable failure cycles. Before those failures happen, let the fleet company carry that risk. Buy things outright that have fewer parts to fail. Hold them as long as possible so depreciation slows down. A BMW or Range Rover can absolutely be the right choice, as long as you lease it while it is new and return it on time. Return it just before the plastic and rubber components start to age. Problems start when a buyer sees a halved price and assumes it is a bargain. They do not realize that price is already reflecting the technical risk ahead. If you are considering a discounted used luxury SUV, a few steps matter. Ask for the full maintenance history. For a Range Rover or Mercedes, get the air suspension inspected specifically. If it is a pre-2017 BMW V8, ask an independent shop about the coolant hoses. A few $100s in inspection before purchase can save thousands. That investment can prevent a several $1,000 repair just months later. So where do you land on this? Would you lease a luxury car for 3 years and hand it back? Or buy Japanese, hold for 10 years, and keep the difference in savings? Leave your answer in the comments.